The chamber is open and full of whispers.
Before we dive in, check the link in the description if you want exclusive timelines, members-only videos you won't find on YouTube, all on our Patreon. The tea goes cold in the cup. Narcissa Malfoy has not touched it in 11 minutes. She sits in the drawing room of Malfoy Manor in a chair that costs more than most wizarding families earn in a year, perfectly still, and she is listening. Not to the house. The house is quiet, Draco asleep upstairs, the manor's wards humming their low ancestral register through the stone floors. The fire doing what fires do. She is listening to the quality of the air. For 6 years, the air of Britain has carried something beneath its ordinary texture, a low electrical pressure, the kind that builds before a storm of exceptional violence. Most people cannot feel it. Narcissa can feel it the way she feels changes in barometric pressure, the way she feels the precise moment a social situation shifts from navigable to dangerous. It is a skill of the Black family, unnamed and untaught, passed through blood rather than instruction. The pressure has been there since she was 19, since a man with red eyes walked into her family's drawing room and the air of Britain became permanently different. At 23 minutes past 10, it stops, not diminishes, not withdraws. Stops, cut off at its source, the way a sound stops when its maker dies. The air of Britain is, for the first time in 6 years, simply air. Narcissa is on her feet before she finishes understanding what this means. She is moving before she has made a conscious decision. Because the part of her mind that processes consequences is already 3 steps ahead of the part that names them. He is gone. Lucius will be arrested. Draco will be asked to pay for every sin his father chose. Unless she goes to the nursery first. Draco is awake. Not quite a year and a half, his enormous gray eyes blinking at her in the low light, with the considering expression he already has. The one that makes the nannies uncomfortable and makes Narcissa quietly proud. She wraps him in the blue blanket and settles him against her chest. He does not make a sound. He has her gift for reading rooms. Then she goes to her jewelry case, not for jewelry, but for the hidden compartment behind the 3rd drawer, the one Lucius does not know exists because Walburga Black showed it to her 3 weeks before she died, pressing something cold and heavy into Narcissa's palm with hands already failing. For when it matters most, Walburga had said, you'll know the Black family ring is heavier than it looks. Silver, star sapphire at its center, older than the Ministry of Magic by 2 centuries. It hums against her finger when she slides it on, not warmly, not welcomingly, but with the specific resonance of something that has been waiting. She is out of the manor in 4 minutes. She apparates to the outer road. Because apparating into an active magical disaster site is the kind of mistake that kills people, and Narcissa does not make that kind of mistake. She comes in on foot, moving quickly through the lane, reading the magical residue in the air the way a forensic examiner reads a crime scene. The cottage has gone cold in the specific way of a house whose fire of life has been extinguished. Not the physical fire, still burning in the grate through a broken window, but the ambient warmth of a space that has been lived in and loved in, and is now neither. The magic that sustained it, the daily ordinary accumulated warmth of 2 people who were happy here, is simply gone. Hagrid is in what remains of the garden. He is enormous and weeping, which are his 2 most consistent qualities, and he is cradling something against his chest, with the particular careful terror of a very large person holding something very small and very fragile. The baby's face is turned inward. On the back of his head, visible from Narcissa's approach angle, a lightning bolt mark, pink and raw and already, in some way she cannot immediately name, wrong, not wrong in the dark arts sense. Wrong in the sense of something unprecedented, the mark of a spell that met something it was not designed to meet and was changed by the meeting. Hagrid looks up. Sees her. His grip tightens. Mrs. Malfoy, he said. His voice carries every complication of his position. the loyalty to Dumbledore, the knowledge of what she is married to, the baby in his arms. "Rubeus," Narcissa said. She stopped at a respectful distance and did not reach for her wand. She held up the black family ring, turning it so the sapphire caught what little light there was. "You have orders to deliver this child to his mother's blood relatives. A blood ward, keyed to his mother's sister." Hagrid said nothing. His expression said, "Yes." "Lily Potter's magic was not a ward," Narcissa said in the tone she uses when she is explaining something that will not be explained twice. "It was a sacrifice, a willing death in place of another. The protection that creates does not live in a house in Surrey. It lives in the child. It is the child." She let this sit for a moment. The ward Albus Dumbledore imagines does not yet exist. And this boy, through lineage arguments I have prepared, and that the Wizengamote's family court will find legally sufficient, falls within the custodial blood right of the noble and most ancient House of Black. I am invoking that right now. If Albus wishes to contest it, I will see him in court." She paused. "With considerable pleasure." Hagrid is not a political creature. He is not equipped for this argument, and he knows it, which is to his credit. He looks at the baby. He looks at Narcissa. He looks at the ring on her finger, which he knows enough old magic to recognize. And he makes the decision that the situation required of him, not because he was outmaneuvered, but because he is fundamentally kind, and the baby in his arms has been crying for 40 minutes, and the woman in front of him is not looking at the boy like a resource. She is looking at the boy like a problem she intends to solve. He holds out the child. The moment Harry Potter enters Narcissa's arms, something happens. Draco, who has been silent against her chest since the manor, turns his head. The two infants regard each other in the near dark of a ruined garden. No sound. No dramatic event. Just two sets of infant eyes finding each other and staying. Narcissa is already moving. She does not look back at Hagrid. She does not look back at the cottage. She is running before she finishes thinking. Because the window she has is narrow, and Dumbledore is not a slow man, and she has a great deal still to do before morning. The stone chapel on the grounds of the French estate smells of cold and old magic, and the particular damp of stone that has been sealed against weather for decades. Narcissa has been here once before, as a child, when Walburga brought her to show her the ceiling, open to the sky by design, a roof that collapses at a single spoken word to expose the stars. She speaks the word. The ceiling folds back. The sky, having spent all of Halloween obscured by storms, is brilliant. Absolutely, unreasonably brilliant, the kind of clear that follows violence. Every star sharpened by the contrast of what came before. Gemini is overhead, Castor and Pollux, twin stars, directly above the open roof. She did not plan this. She did not have the luxury of planning this. But the Black family has always maintained that magic has its own opinions about timing, and tonight she is inclined to agree. She sets both children on the stone floor, side by side, on the blue blanket. She opens the Codex Aeter to page 312. The text is in the hybrid language of the early Black family, Old English threaded through with the Latin that the Norman ancestors brought across the Channel. She has read this page 7 times in preparation. She does not need to read it again. She has everything else. 2 silver bowls of starlit rainwater collected from the estate grounds on her arrival. 1 golden needle from the chapel's preparation chest, waiting in this room since the 16th century for exactly this purpose. The Black family ring, warm on her finger. 2 infants who are, improbably, still awake. She pricks her finger. A drop of blood into each bowl, the efficient's blood, the catalyst. Then 1 drop from Harry's right wrist, 1 from Draco's. Neither child cries. They are watching the ceiling, watching the twin stars overhead with the focused attention of people who have not yet learned that the world is supposed to be larger than what is directly in front of them. The incantation rises in cold air, breath visible. Stellae Gemini, animas legatis, Castor et Pollux, fratris in aeternum. Sanguis ad sanguinem, magia ad magiam. Domus nigra cognoscit duos, nets unum. The water in both bowls turns black, then silver, then clear as glass, so clear it is like looking through nothing, like the water has simply decided to become invisible. Both children's right wrists glow. Not dramatically, not explosively. Silver light tracing the lines of their magical cores the way frost traces window glass, following pathways that were always there and are only now visible. Harry's pulses, warm, deep, the rhythm of a heartbeat, which is appropriate. Because what lives in Harry Potter is fundamentally alive in a way that does not care about Dark Lords or prophecies or carefully constructed plans. Draco's is steadier, more architectural, starlight rather than firelight, building upward rather than radiating outward. Then, the glow is gone. The twin stars remain overhead, indifferent and permanent. Draco reaches his hand across the silver bowl, his fingers close around Harry's index finger with the grip of an infant who has decided this is the correct thing to hold and sees no reason to revise the assessment. Harry curls his fingers around Draco's hand. Narcissa kneels on the stone floor, Malfoy robes dusty at the knee. Hair loose around her face, the black family ring cooling slowly on her right hand. She is 30 years old. She has just, in the space of 4 hours, intercepted Hagrid, crossed the Channel, opened an ancestral chapel, and performed a rite not performed since 1743. She allows herself one moment, a single, private, unaristocratic moment, of something that might be called tenderness, looking at these two children on a stone floor under twin stars, holding each other's hands in the dark. Then she stands. She smooths her robes. She closes the codex at her. "Right," Narcissa said. "To no one, to both of them, to the decision she has made and the decades of consequence it is already setting in motion. Now we build something worth inheriting." The library at the French estate has 14,000 books and 2 toddlers who have discovered that the lower shelves are exactly the right height for pulling. Narcissa does not stop them. The books on the lower shelves are the ones she placed there deliberately, spines she wants small hands to learn the texture of before small minds learn the content. She is, in this as in everything, 3 steps ahead of the immediate situation. Harry pulls a book about constellations. Draco pulls a book about constellations from the other end of the same shelf, simultaneously, without looking at each other, and then they sit back to back on the floor, with their books open to pages neither of them can read yet. Narcissa observes from her desk that this is, somehow, a conversation. She writes in the journal she has labeled Core Observations. The magic does not merge. It coordinates, as if it negotiated the outcome between itself and arrived at consensus. I have not seen this in the literature. She caps her pen. The boys are holding their books upside down with identical grip. Neither has noticed. At 3, the reading begins. Not Hogwarts subjects, those can wait. What Narcissa reads to them in the evenings, with both boys folded into the wide chair that was designed for one adult and accommodates 2 small children if they are willing to share, which they always are, is the Codex Aeter's historical sections. Black family sorcerers before the ideology warped them. A 12th century lord who negotiated a 30-year peace between 3 warring territories, using nothing but old law and older patience. A 15th century witch who built the first magical creature sanctuary in Britain from a single inherited vault and sheer institutional persistence. She is giving them a different black identity before the world can give them the standard one. At 5, the training hazel rods arrive. Narcissa steps back 12 feet in the estate's back garden on a Tuesday morning in April. "That bush," she said. Harry points his rod at the bush and thinks move, in the uncomplicated way of a 5-year-old who has not yet been told this should be difficult. The bush moves. Draco points his rod at the same bush a half-second later. With the focused precision of someone who has watched Harry do it and has already identified the variables and made the necessary adjustments, the bush moves considerably more emphatically. Then, because they are 5, and neither of them has been told not to, they both point their rods at the bush simultaneously without discussion or coordination. And the bush, along with 6 feet of surrounding garden wall, departs the estate grounds entirely. The silence afterward is the silence of a space that has been altered in a way it cannot correct. Narcissa looks at the gap where the garden wall was. She opens the core observations journal, simultaneous casting, unplanned, uncoordinated, instinctive, force approximately 40 times single wand estimate. Garden wall, collateral. Will need to address the directional control problem. Also, will need a new garden wall. She caps her pen. Again, Narcissa said. Smaller target. Consider what you're trying to achieve before you achieve it. Which part of the wall did we, Draco began. All of it, Narcissa said. Smaller target. The garden wall is rebuilt. Then, rebuilt again. By 9, they fight as one organism. Draco offensive, Harry defensive. The braided magic of their bonded cores producing what the Codex Aeter calls a third category effect, distinct from either individual, more than the sum of both. Sirius Black, once exonerated, the evidence delivered to his barrister through channels Narcissa never discusses, arrives at the estate and names this the Shadow Formation, and spends 2 years codifying it into something they can run without thinking. He also teaches them joy, which Narcissa identifies as a nutrient deficiency and addresses with the same clinical efficiency she applies to all gaps in their training. The Hogwarts letters arrive at breakfast when they are 11. 3 letters, landing on the table with the ordinary mundane thud of extraordinary things. About time, Harry said. I note they've already prepared a dormitory, Draco said. Standard configuration, I assume. 3 texts each, Narcissa said, without looking up from her coffee. We do not announce what we have before we are ready to use it. Extension charms would solve the trunk space problem entirely, said a voice from the far end of the table. The voice belonged to Hermione. But Hermione requires her own telling. You're absolutely right, I apologize for that. I mislabeled the continuation as Part 3 when it should be Part 2. Here is Part 2 correctly. Hermione Granger is 5 years old and reading about canopic jars in the adult section of the Bloomsbury Public Library when Narcissa finds her. Not the children's section, the adult history aisle, 3rd stack from the left. A book across her knees that is substantially larger than she is. She is not looking at pictures. She is reading, lips moving slightly, finger tracking a line of text about Old Kingdom mortuary practices that most credentialed adults find impenetrable. Her hair is extraordinary. A dark cloud that has reached its current state through natural inclination and complete indifference to external opinion. Narcissa raises the lineage glass, a black family heirloom, a frameless monocle ground from something not quite crystal and not quite obsidian, etched at its circumference with genealogical runes so fine they are invisible without magnification. Through it, magical lineages appear as light. Dormant bloodlines glow silver, active cores burn gold. Ancient noble lines carry a specific deep blue at their root, the color of magic accumulating significance across generations. What she sees stops her. The magical core is not the largest she has encountered in a child this age. Harry and Draco at 5 burned in the glass like struck flints, raw power, barely organized. This is different. This core has organized itself, arranged itself into something that functions less like a flame and more like a filing system, precise, layered, cross-indexed, each element of magical capacity in exact relationship with every other element. She has rarely seen this configuration in adults. Then the ancestral line. She follows it upward through the glass, the dormant silver of a lineage that went quiet generation by generation as magical expression receded, but at its root, unmistakably, deep blue, an ancient wizarding line, long since walked away from magic, losing its connection with every generation. Until this one. And then, the thing Narcissa will not write down for 3 days because she needs time to determine whether she is reading it correctly. The same harmonic resonance she sees between Harry and Draco when she looks at them through the glass. Not identical. Theirs is internal, the bond of the Castor and Pollux ritual, oriented toward each other. This is the same frequency, but directed outward, pointing away from the girl. Toward them, with the compass needle certainty of magic that has never experienced doubt. 3. Narcissa lowers the glass. She crosses the aisle and sits down on the library floor. For Narcissa Black, this is a revolutionary act. She is aware of this while doing it, and does it anyway, which is the definition of a decision rather than a reflex. The girl looks up, not alarmed, curious, in the way of someone interrupted by something potentially more interesting than what she was doing. "What are you reading?" Narcissa said. "Ancient Egyptian mortuary practices," the girl said. Her voice is precise and considerably more assured than 5 years old typically produces. The section about canopic jars is particularly interesting. Each organ corresponds to a specific protective deity based on the organ's function relative to judgment. The heart was weighed separately. "The system is logical," Narcissa said. The girl's eyes sharpened. "Yes, most people say strange or morbid. Because most people mistake unfamiliarity for irrationality. Do you know why organ preservation was considered essential even after the heart's judgment determined worthiness?" The girl thought, visibly, thoroughly, without performing the thinking for an audience. She worked it through from the internal architecture outward. "Because worthiness for continued existence doesn't automatically equip you to sustain it," she said slowly. "Judgment and capacity are separate questions. Being found worthy of something doesn't mean you arrive at it intact." A pause. "That isn't specific to Egypt. That's a general principle." "It is," Narcissa said. They regarded each other across the library floor with the mutual recognition of two people who operate at a frequency most of their surrounding environment does not share. "I know what you are," Narcissa said. "I have 2 boys at home who are similarly situated. I would like you to meet them." The girl did not react with alarm or excitement. She considered this with the same methodical thoroughness she had applied to the canopic jar problem. "Does your library have more books than this one?" she said. "Considerably more." "What subjects?" "Law, history, magical theory, across 14 centuries. Gray, sorcery. Genealogy, ancient runes. Several categories that do not have satisfactory names in current English." The girl looked at the book in her lap, looked at Narcissa. The magic in her, which Narcissa could feel even without the glass now, the way you feel a fire from across a room before you see the light, oriented itself with the whole body conviction of a compass finding north. "I would need to speak with my parents first," she said. "Naturally, and I would want library access arranged formally, with documentation specifying scope and conditions." Narcissa looked at this 5-year-old child negotiating access terms to a private library from a library floor in Bloomsbury, and recorded in the part of her mind reserved for significant observations, correctly made. "My solicitor will prepare documentation," Narcissa said. "What is your name?" "Hermione Granger." 3 weeks later, the meeting lasts 47 minutes before the first real silence. Harry attempts to demonstrate his levitation proficiency by lifting 3 cups simultaneously. The cups achieve flight, but one lists badly leftward and Harry corrects it with the slight frown of someone reconciling theory with execution. Draco, who has spent the previous 48 hours reading everything in the library about ancient Egypt, having been informed a girl his age was doing so independently, and finding this professionally unacceptable. identifies 17 errors in Hermione's copy of her Egypt book within 4 minutes of her arrival. He delivers these findings in the organized, rapid manner of someone who considers this a form of introduction. Hermione corrects all 17 corrections. From memory. With citations. 3 sources per correction, delivered without raising her voice. In the tone of someone who had her responses prepared. The cups, abandoned mid-demonstration, drift gently back to the table. The 3 of them stand in the drawing room in a triangle that no one arranged, with the particular stillness of people who have just encountered the full dimensions of the available landscape for the first time, and are revising their maps accordingly. Harry sat down on the floor. Not because the situation required it, because sitting down is what you do when the conversation about to happen is worth treating seriously, and he has always known this without being taught it. "Okay," Harry said, looking at Hermione with the directness of someone who has already retired the previous social architecture of the last 4 minutes. "What else do you know?" Hermione sat. She opened her bag, produced a notebook already half full and a pen, and set them on the floor between them with the deliberateness of someone laying down a document at the start of a negotiation. Draco sat beside Harry. He did not look at either of them. He looked at the notebook, which was organized in a tabular structure with color-coded margin annotations. And something in his expression did what expressions do when they encounter a system that is better than the one they were using. He reached into his own pocket and produced his own notebook. Hermione looked at it. Looked at him. The margin annotation system in Draco's notebook was color-coded differently, but operated on the same underlying logic, arrived at independently. From different directions, toward the same organizational conclusion. Neither of them said anything about this. "Where do we start?" Harry said. "Gaps," Hermione said immediately. "We identify what each of us knows that the others don't, map the overlaps, and begin from the boundaries." Draco opened his notebook to a fresh page. "Agreed," he said. They began. Narcissa, in the doorway, lifted the lineage glass one final time and looked at the 3 of them through it. The resonance was no longer pointing. It had arrived. The harmonic between the 3 cores was not the bond of the Castor and Pollux ritual, that was still present, still internal between Harry and Draco, but something adjacent to it. A third frequency, produced not by ritual but by proximity and recognition, and the specific alchemy of 3 exceptional things finding each other and deciding to be more than the sum. She lowered the glass. She wrote 1 line in the Core Observations Journal. The resonance was not pointing toward 2 children finding a third. It was pointing toward 3 children finding each other. The distinction matters. She underlined it. Closed the journal. Inside, the 3 of them had already moved past introductions and were 3 pages into mapping the gaps. The black party arrives at the station at 5 minutes to 11. Not early enough to be anxious. Not late enough to be rushed. 5 minutes to 11 is exactly the margin of a person who has calculated the precise interval that communicates control of the situation without communicating effort. The platform is its usual chaos. Trunks and owls and families conducting their goodbyes at the specific pitch of people compressing everything unsaid into the available minutes. The Hogwarts Express stands at the platform's end, steam building, the red of it vivid against the gray London morning. Harry and Draco walk through it at a measured pace. The robes are not costumes. Costumes are worn by people performing an identity. These robes, Harry's in Potter green with black silver trim, Draco's in Malfoy silver with black silver trim, both fitted with the precision of garments made for specific bodies, are worn by people who have inhabited an identity long enough that the clothing is simply accurate. On their right hands, beneath dark leather gloves, the family rings. Hermione walks at the triangle's forward point. She wears standard Hogwarts robes with one modification, an amber ring, modest and ancient and not hidden. Sirius walks with them as far as the barrier. Leather jacket, the grin that surfaces before he can manage it. He has both hands on both boys' shoulders at once, which requires him to walk slightly sideways. "First piece of advice," Sirius said. "Don't let Peeves find out your names in the first week." "We've read the full Marauder incident record," Harry said. "We know how to manage Peeves." "That record was meant to be private," Sirius said. "It was in the library," Draco said. "It was in the restricted section of the library." "We've had unrestricted access since we were 8, Harry said. Sirius opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Narcissa, who was straightening Draco's collar with the focused attention of someone who was not thinking about collars. She moved to Harry's collar, straightened it with the same precision. Then she stepped back and looked at them both for a moment that belonged to her privately, which she did not extend beyond its necessary length. "You have everything you need," Narcissa said. "You have had it for years. Go remind them who you are." "We know who we are," Harry said. "We've always known," Draco said. She held the look for one more second. Then she nodded, once, and the boys walked through the barrier. Sirius watched them go, turned to find Narcissa still looking at the space where they were. "You did good, Sissa," he said. "Obviously," she said. Ron Weasley finds their compartment by process of elimination, 4 others full, this one with the blind down, and knocks anyway because he is constitutionally incapable of not trying. Harry opens the door. Ron's face does the thing faces do when they have prepared for a social situation and arrived at a different one. 2 boys who are clearly together in the way of people who have never needed to perform being together. A girl with a half-full notebook who looks up from it with the assessing attention of someone deciding in real time whether this interruption is worth the cost. "Sorry," Ron said. "Everywhere else is full. Can I come in?" Harry said. "You're a Weasley? Arthur Weasley's son?" Ron's expression recalibrated. Yes, Ron. How did you? Your father published a paper on the enchantment patterns of Muggle kitchen appliances in the Journal of Magical Artifacts 2 years ago. We read it. He has an interesting methodology." Harry stepped aside. "I'm Harry Potter Black. This is Draco Malfoy Black. And Hermione Granger." Ron came in. He looked at the rings visible now that Harry had removed his gloves. He looked at the 3 of them with the open, uncomplicated attention of someone who is genuinely curious rather than performing curiosity. "Potter Black," Ron said. "You're both Lords of Black?" "Co-lords," Draco said. "The distinction has legal significance." "Right." Ron processed this with the equanimity of someone who grew up in a house where the extraordinary was ordinary by a different measure. "Do you want a chocolate frog?" "I've got 4. Mum packed them." Harry took 1. Draco declined with the slight gesture that means not from a pocket, which Ron didn't notice because it was not performed for his benefit. Hermione took 1, opened it, read the card, and added it to a small, organized stack in her bag. "I'm collecting the historically significant ones," she said, without looking up. "Flamel is the one I need." Ron pulled out his own card. It was Flamel. He looked at it. Looked at Hermione. Handed it across without being asked. Hermione looked at him for a moment, with the specific attention she gives things that have exceeded their predicted parameters. "Thank you," she said. "I've got doubles of most of them," Ron said, which was not entirely true but became true in the saying of it. The train moved through the outskirts of London and into the countryside. The 4 of them talked the way people talk when the conversation is genuinely going somewhere. Ron on his family and the Burrow and 6 brothers and the texture of growing up in a house where magic is ordinary. Harry and Draco listening with the focused attention of people who grew up with a different ordinary and are interested in the comparison. Hermione asking questions with the precision of someone building a model in real time. By the time the train curved north and the sky outside turned a deeper gray, Ron had argued with Draco about Quidditch statistics, agreed with Harry about the methodological limitations of the Standard Book of Spells, and lent Hermione his second copy of Famous Wizard Cards Series 4 without tracking the loan. He was not part of the Trinity. But he was, Harry decided, exactly the kind of person the Trinity should know. The first years file through the entrance hall toward the Great Hall's doors. Standard procedure. McGonagall has done this 31 times and it has not varied. It varies tonight. Harry and Draco do not file in with the line. They fall back, a natural drift, unhurried, and Hermione falls back with them. When the last first year passes through the doors, there is a gap of 4 seconds before the Trinity enters. 4 seconds is enough. They walk in together at the pace of people who have decided on a pace and see no reason to adjust it for the room's expectations. Harry and Draco side by side, Hermione at the triangle's forward point. The gloves are off. The rings catch the candlelight from the floating flames overhead, Harry's Potter green and black silver, Draco's Malfoy silver and black silver, Hermione's amber, and the catching is not accidental. What happens next is not orchestrated. They simply walked through a door carrying the full weight of what they are, and Hogwarts, which is a very old castle with very old opinions, responded to the entry of 2 lords of ancient houses the way very old things respond to significant arrivals. It noticed. The candles burn brighter for 4 seconds, not dramatically, 4 seconds of slightly more light, the kind of increase that makes shadows shift, that makes 400 faces turn toward the source without understanding why they are turning. The whispers begin a beat later. McGonagall, midway through calling the first name on her list, stops. Her eyes find Harry and Draco with the precision of a woman who has spent 30 years identifying exactly what is standing in front of her. Something moves across her expression, recognition, assessment, and underneath both, the specific resignation of a person whose next several years have just become considerably more complicated. At the head table, Dumbledore's hands go very still on his goblet. He has known, in the abstract, since a sealed Wizengamot family court filing in Harry's infancy, that this moment was coming. Abstract knowledge and the actual sight of Harry Potter walking into the Great Hall, wearing a black co-lord ring, while Draco Malfoy walks beside him, are different categories of information. He manages. Barely at the Defense Against the Dark Arts table, Professor Quirrell looks at Harry with an expression that moves through recognition and into something colder. Beneath the turban, beneath the fragile shell of a frightened man's borrowed face, something stirs, dormant, patient, and now suddenly acutely alert. Then it recoils. 2 black bonded cores walking through Hogwarts' wards in full resonance is not a comfortable experience for a fractured soul sharing a human body. The recoil is instinctive and violent and gone in a second, suppressed, but it leaves Quirrell's hands shaking and his face 2 degrees paler than it was. Harry, moving toward the front of the hall, does not look at the staff table. He can feel the recoil the way you feel a door slam in an adjacent room, not the impact but the brief atmospheric consequence. He files it. He will address it when he is ready, which will not be tonight. Tonight there is a sorting. The sorting hat has been sitting on stools in this hall for just over 1,000 years, long enough to have developed certainty about most things. It has never, in all that time, been genuinely surprised. Tonight it is paying attention in a way it has not in some time. Hermione sits on the stool. The hat descends. "Well," the hat said, in the private channel between itself and the mind it was reading. "This is a different kind of problem." "I wouldn't call it a problem," Hermione said. "No, you wouldn't. Your mind has the organizational structure of someone 3 times your age. The ambition doesn't want power for its own sake. It wants to be right. There's a distinction." "Yes," Hermione said, "there is. Ravenclaw would be accurate. Slytherin would use you well. But you've already chosen, haven't you?" "I'd like Gryffindor. Please." "Why?" she answered without performance. "Because bravery is the virtue I am still learning. Intellect, I have. Strategy, I have. But the willingness to act before the outcome is certain, to move without complete information because moving is right regardless, that I am still developing. I want the practice. The hat was quiet for a moment in the way of something genuinely considering. Most people ask for Gryffindor because they want to be seen as brave, it said. You're asking for it as a training environment. Yes, Hermione said. Gryffindor, the hat announced. Draco walks forward next. He moves at the pace he always moves, measured, the pace of someone for whom the outcome has already been assessed and found manageable. He sits. The hat descends. Malfoy, the hat said. There have been Malfoys before, always Slytherin, always ambitious. But you're not quite the same animal, are you? I would hope not, Draco said. Your occlumency is exceptional. I can see what you're allowing me to see, and I'm aware of the allowance, which is itself a form of respect. The precision is Ravenclaw. The loyalty, specifically and deeply felt, not performed, is Hufflepuff in character, whatever its object. And the bravery? Draco said. What house is that? It depends on the kind, the hat said. There is the bravery of impulse and the bravery of decision. You have the second kind. You have always had the second kind. The hat does not shout a house. Instead, it speaks in a voice that fills the great hall, not its standard announcement voice, but something older, carrying the resonance of 1,000 years of accumulated institutional authority. In all my centuries of sorting, I have not been asked to separate what magic has already joined. The ritual of Castor and Pollux is known to me. What stands before this school tonight is not 2 students, but 1 unit requiring 2 chairs. I will not pretend otherwise. The hall is very still. The House of Black holds, under Founder-era precedent, acclaim to sovereign quarters in the castle's dungeon wing, rooms sealed for centuries, accessible to a Lord of Black presenting family standing. 2 have enrolled tonight. The hat's voice carries the specific quality of an institution, invoking its oldest rules. Not arbitrary authority, but the deep structural authority of something built carefully and waiting for the right circumstances to fully deploy. I hereby designate Harry James Potter Black and Draco Lucius Malfoy Black to sovereign quarters, claimed under House Black's founder right. Their formal house affiliation, for purposes of points and records, is a pause of 2 full seconds, their own. The silence that follows is the silence of a room whose category system has just been revised without its consent. Then the Gryffindor table starts, haltingly, to applaud. Then Ravenclaw. Then Hufflepuff. The Slytherin table is quiet, in the specific way of people who are recalculating. Harry sits on the stool last. The hat descends. You, the hat said, are the interesting one. Everyone says that, Harry said. Everyone is correct. Death marked. Love anchored. Trained in a private archive and in Marauder track improvisations simultaneously. You have the most internally contradictory magical core I have encountered in 1,000 years. Is that a problem? Harry said. It's a wonder, the hat said. You should be angrier than you are. You survived something at 1-year-old that should have, and yet here you are, choosing what to show me. That's not resilience in the passive sense. That's will. I had good people, Harry said. You chose to let them be good for you. That's the harder half. The hat considered him fully. Gryffindor would have you. So would every other house. But you already know where you're going. Same place as my brother, Harry said. Yes, the hat said. The same place as your brother. It did not shout a house. The designation had already been made. It sat on Harry's head for a moment longer than necessary, in the way of something savoring an encounter it would not have again. Then Harry stood, removed the hat himself, and set it back on the stool with the care of someone returning something borrowed rather than used. Draco was already beside him. They turned together toward the hall, toward 400 faces and 1 head table where Dumbledore had recovered sufficient composure to produce a mild smile that did not reach the part of his eyes where the actual assessment lived. Sovereign quarters, Draco said quietly, for Harry only. I told you the dormitory configuration was going to be inadequate. You said it needed more shelves, Harry said. It will need more shelves. That's a separate issue. They walked toward the dungeon corridor side by side, at the pace of people who know exactly where they are going. Hermione's notes flagged the anomaly on a Tuesday 3 months into term. Not dramatically, it surfaces as a footnote in her third cross-reference between the Black Library's historical survey of Hogwarts warding architecture and the castle's current ambient magical signature, which she has been mapping since the second week of term. The footnote reads, "Third floor, right-hand corridor, containment configuration. Recent, not original to the castle. Query, purpose." She circles it, passes the notes to Draco at breakfast without comment. Draco reads the footnote, reads the 3 pages of surrounding context, sets the notes down, and picks up his coffee. "Recent," he said. "Within the last few months," Hermione said. "The ward signature hasn't fully integrated with the castle's base layer yet. When warding is genuinely old, it becomes indistinguishable from the stone. This is still sitting on top, which means it was placed just before term began," Draco said. "A ministry-contracted warding team, according to Hogwarts caretaker maintenance records, which are technically public documents if you know which filing category covers school property." "The Gringotts break in," Harry said. Both of them looked at him. "The last day of July," he said. "Someone tried to rob a Gringotts vault. It was in the Prophet. We all read it. Vault 713. Empty when the ministry investigated. Whatever was in it was moved before the break-in." He looked at the footnote. "Moved here." The 3 of them sat with this in the particular silence of people who have reached the same conclusion from different directions and are now verifying the map. Vault 713 was registered to Albus Dumbledore, Hermione said. "The registration is public record. The warding configuration on the 3rd floor is consistent with a containment built around a single object of significant magical density. Not a weapon. Not a creature. An artifact." She paused. "The only artifact I can find that would warrant a joint Gringotts and castle containment protocol, with a confirmed connection to Dumbledore, is the Philosopher's Stone. Nicholas Flamel commissioned a security review of it years ago. I found the reference in the Black Archive's financial correspondence. Flamel and the Black family had a professional relationship in the 15th century. The review noted that the stone's current location was no longer adequate given an emerging threat to its security. So Dumbledore is using Hogwarts as a vault," Harry said. "Using us as bait, more precisely," Draco said. "If someone wants the stone, they come here. They navigate whatever traps are on the 3rd floor. Dumbledore observes them, learns their capabilities." His voice carried no heat, simply the flat assessment of someone identifying a structure. "He built a trap and put first years in the building with it. He's done it before," Harry said. "Different scale." "Right," Hermione said, opening her notebook to a fresh page. "Then we remove the stone. Legally, cleanly, before anyone attempts to retrieve it." She looked at Harry. "The Wizarding Property and Artifact Act. An artifact of documented provenance is the legal property of its creator or designated heir. It cannot be held by a third party without the owner's explicit written consent, filed with Gringotts." She paused. "There is no such filing indicating Flamel has consented to Dumbledore holding the stone, which means it's legally retrievable by formal petition to Flamel directly." "He would have to authorize it," Harry said. "Yes," Hermione said. "So the question is whether Nicholas Flamel, who is centuries old, has owned this stone for most of those years, and is presumably aware that someone attempted to steal it from his vault. Will respond positively to a formal legal notice from 3 11-year-olds pointing out that his property is currently being used as bait in a headmaster's intelligence operation." She said this in the tone of someone who had already assessed the probability. "The letter takes 4 drafts. Not because the legal argument requires refinement, That portion is clean on the first attempt. Hermione's statutory citations precise and complete. The drafts are necessary because tone is a form of argument, and the tone of a letter to a wizard who has survived several centuries requires calibration. Draft 3 is Hermione's suggestion, direct, factual, beginning not with legal standing but with the specific sentence. We believe you are aware that your property is being used as bait. He'll either respond immediately or not at all, Harry said. Send it, Draco said. They send it through the Black family solicitor with a Gringotts authentication seal confirming the co-lord designations. The response arrives at breakfast 17 days later. Not by standard owl, by a bird none of them has seen before, very old in the way that shows in feathers rather than size, which deposits a single cream envelope on the table between Harry's coffee and Draco's notes with the unhurried precision of a creature that has been delivering correspondence for centuries and has never once dropped anything. The handwriting is extremely old in the specific way of someone who learned the form before standardization, individual, idiosyncratic, and immediately legible despite this. Lords Potter Black and Malfoy Black, and Miss Granger, your letter is the most sensible communication I have received regarding the stone in 30 years. I have initiated the Gringotts artifact recovery process as of this morning. The retrieval team will arrive at Hogwarts within 10 days under standard artifact recovery protocols, which Dumbledore cannot legally impede without filing a counterclaim through the Wizengamot, a process that would take 6 weeks and would require him to formally acknowledge that the stone is here, which I suspect he would prefer not to do. The legal citation in paragraph 3 is accurate, and I have used it myself. Well done. You correctly identified that I am aware of the bait arrangement. I did not consent to it. I am correcting this. N.F. Harry read it, passed it to Draco. Draco read it, passed it to Hermione. Hermione read it twice, added it to the file, and made a notation. Flamel Nicholas, reliable correspondent. Direct, useful, the Gringotts retrieval team arrives 10 days later. 4 goblins in standard retrieval uniform, carrying containment equipment for objects above a certain magical density threshold. They move through Hogwarts with the authority of people who have a legal right to be somewhere and know it. The traps on the 3rd floor, designed to slow a single unauthorized intruder, are not designed for a retrieval team acting under artifact law with authenticated owner authorization. The team is courteous about the dog. The stone is retrieved with the efficiency of people who have done this before and is removed from Hogwarts grounds by noon. The 3rd floor corridor is, for the first time since July, simply a corridor. Harry and Draco go to Dumbledore that afternoon. Not because they were summoned, they were not, but because the conversation needs to happen and waiting for him to initiate, it gives him the framing. Dumbledore is at his desk. He looks, for approximately 4 seconds, like a man who has spent the afternoon composing himself after a significant recalibration and who has mostly completed the work. The Philosopher's Stone has been retrieved by its owner, Harry said. The 3rd floor corridor is clear. Whatever you were running through it is concluded. I was monitoring a threat, Dumbledore said. There is a presence in this school, Quirrell, Draco said. We know. A pause. We identified the anomaly in the first week, Harry said. The surface magical signature is inconsistent, 2 patterns where there should be 1. The secondary pattern is cold in a specific way. He met Dumbledore's eyes. You knew before we arrived. You left the stone here as bait. I wanted to understand the extent of his recovery, Dumbledore said. His capabilities. If he attempted to retrieve the stone, you would have learned his method, Draco said, and the cost of that intelligence would have been paid by whoever he went through to reach it, which could have been any student in this building. He did not raise his voice. The absence of heat made it more precise. The stone is gone. Flamel has it. Whatever Quirrell intended is now without object. He'll leave, Harry said. Without the stone, there's nothing to stay for. You have a window, perhaps 48 hours before he makes alternative arrangements. Whatever you intend to do, it should happen in that window. Dumbledore looked at them. These 11-year-olds who had just removed his operational centerpiece through a letter to an elderly alchemist and a knowledge of property law. "You are not angry," he said. "We're past anger," Harry said. "We're at solutions. The stone is safe. Quirrell is your problem to manage. We've given you the window." He stood. "We'd appreciate being kept informed." As a courtesy. They left. The portraits watched Dumbledore sit alone in his office for a long time after the door closed. He picked up a lemon drop from the dish on his desk, held it without eating it. The plan he had built for Harry Potter, the sheltered boy, the humble arrival, the careful shaping toward a necessary end, had been replaced by something he had not accounted for and could not now redirect. He was, for perhaps the first time in 40 years, genuinely uncertain what happened next. He found, beneath the uncertainty, something that might be relief. Gilderoy Lockhart's first defense lesson of the year produces, in Draco's margin notes, one line: source problem. Escalate. This is not a surprise. Draco has been reading Lockhart since age 9, when Narcissa added Magical Me to the library's collection under the heading Contemporary Self-Promotion, a study in methodology. He read it as assigned. He noted 14 internal inconsistencies and filed them under the working hypothesis that Gilderoy Lockhart was either extraordinarily careless or extraordinarily dishonest, and that the distinction was largely academic. The distinction becomes less academic when Lockhart spends 50 minutes in front of a second-year defense class describing his own exploits without producing a single piece of verifiable magic. "He's a fraud," Draco said, walking back through the corridor after class. "I know," Harry said. "You identified it?" "Hermione identified it. She told me this morning." Draco looked ahead to where Hermione was already moving through the corridor with the focus speed of someone who has a library and intends to use it. "How long has she known?" "Since the first book." She flagged the Wagga Wagga werewolf account as inconsistent with the Ministry report 2 years ago. "She's been building a file." Draco was quiet for 3 steps. "She didn't mention it. She was waiting until she had the complete case," Harry said. "She said incomplete cases encourage premature action." "She's right," Draco said. "The file is 11 pages. Hermione laid it on the study table between them with the precision of someone presenting a completed instrument rather than a work in progress. 3 sections. Discrepancies by publication, cross-referenced against Ministry incident filings, financial records obtained through the Black family's Gringotts liaison, specifically 3 non-disclosure settlement agreements paid to wizards whose names appear in the Ministry's actual incident records, and the relevant statutes, beginning with the Wizarding Publishing Integrity Act. Harry read it straight through. Draco read it simultaneously. Same document, different starting points, the reading configuration they have used since age 6. When they finished, Harry set his pages down. "The settlements," he said, "significantly below the going rate for a non-disclosure of this magnitude," Hermione said, "which suggests the subjects were intimidated rather than adequately compensated. One of them, Alberic Dune, refused to sign the second renewal. He's been attempting to speak to a wizarding publication about the Wagga Wagga incident for years without anyone willing to print it. He has documentation." "He's in Abergavenny," Draco said. Hermione and Harry looked at him. "I read ahead," Draco said, without apology. "Narcissa's contact network ran the name. He's alive, he's a working wizard, and he has documentation. I've already written to him through the solicitor." "I already sent it," Harry said. A pause. "When?" Draco said. "This morning. Before breakfast. Same solicitor, different channel. I figured you'd done the same thing." Hermione closed her notebook, opened it again. "One of you needs to let the other take point on logistics," she said. or we are going to spend the next 6 years doubling our own correspondence. Harry and Draco looked at each other with the specific expression of two people who have operated in such close conjunction for so long that they have developed identical instincts and are only now discovering the operational friction this produces. Alphabetically, Draco said. That puts you first, Harry said. Yes, Draco said. Fine. Lockhart's dueling demonstration is his own idea, which is the first problem. The second problem is the press, a reporter from Witch Weekly and a photographer from the Daily Prophet, positioned near the staff table with the alert patience of people who have been promised a story. The governors are present. Dumbledore is present. 400 students in the hall's standard configuration, faces turned toward the raised platform Lockhart has conjured at the front. It is, Harry notes from the third row, an extremely comprehensive audience. Lockhart beams at the crowd with the specific confidence of a man who has performed this kind of thing many times and expects the usual result. His robes are turquoise. His teeth are very white. Now, he said, spreading his arms with the ease of the practiced showman, I thought I'd demonstrate some of the defensive techniques described in Chapter 7 of Professor Lockhart, Harry said. His voice is not loud. It does not need to be. The voice of a Lord of Black speaking with formal intent carries through the hall's old acoustics the way water finds the path prepared for it. Lockhart's smile adjusted, not disappearing, but shifting into the configuration of a man managing something. Harry, my boy, we can certainly address any questions after, it won't take long, Harry said. He stood, reached into his robes, and removed a leather folder with the matter-of-fact efficiency of someone retrieving a tool. He opened it. I have here a copy of the settlement agreement signed by Alberic Dune. Mr. Dune defeated the Wagga Wagga werewolf. The Ministry Incident Report confirms this. The filing wizard's name is on record. Mr. Dune's own account includes the memory evidence of the event, witnessed and preserved. Harry looked up. The photographer had not lowered his camera. I have here a ministry filing confirming that the Banshee of Blishen Road was dispatched by a witch named Marin Brennan. She received no publication credit and a non-disclosure payment of 50 galleons. And I have here the relevant sections of the Wizarding Publishing Integrity Act, governing the illegal appropriation of magical achievement for commercial publication. He closed the folder. As co-lord of the House of Black with standing in the Wizengamot, I am serving formal notice that this material has been referred to the relevant committee. The Board of Governors will receive complete documentation packages today. He looked at Lockhart with the expression of someone completing a task. You have built a career on other people's achievements and silenced them with inadequate compensation. You are a fraud. This is now a matter of formal record. He sat down. The hall did not erupt. It did something different. A vast collective exhalation. The sound of 400 people breathing out at once, followed by the charged quiet of a space in which something irrevocable has just happened. We've also arranged for Mr. Dune and Miss Brennan to provide statements to the Wizengamot Standards Committee, Draco said, from his seat beside Harry, in the conversational tone of someone providing supplementary information. Mr. Dune has been attempting to do this for years. He mentioned in his letter that he's looking forward to it. Specifically, the Daily Prophet photographer took the picture at this moment. Lockhart leaves before the end of the week, pending the formal inquiry. In the aftermath, while students are still processing the architecture of what has happened, Lucius Malfoy moves through the dispersing crowd toward Draco. He has the walk of a man accustomed to rooms arranging themselves around his approach. He is immaculate, unhurried, certain of the outcome before the conversation begins. Draco sees him coming. He turns to face him fully and does not move. A word, Lucius said. Anything you'd like to say to me, you may say here, Draco said. Not with the heat of confrontation, with the complete calm of someone for whom the emotional stakes of this conversation were resolved some time ago. We don't conduct family business privately at Hogwarts. It encourages ambiguity about terms. Lucius looked at his son. At the ring on Draco's right hand, at Harry, who had moved one step to Draco's left without appearing to have moved at all, simply present, a fact of the situation. "You've overreached," Lucius said. "Your standing doesn't extend to. The referral is within the Wizengamot rights of a co-lord of an ancient house," Draco said. "The documentation is factually accurate. The statute is current and applicable." Was any part of the referral incorrect? Factually? Lucius said nothing. "I thought not." Draco reached into his robes and produced an envelope, cream, the Black family solicitor's seal in dark wax at its flap. He held it out. "The Gringotts recall notice. The first debt tranche is due in 60 days. I'd recommend reading it before your next meeting with your lawyers. It will save time." He paused. "You are on Hogwarts grounds without an appointment and without standing to be here in any formal capacity. I'm advising you as co-Lord of Black that your presence is unwelcome. You should go." Lucius Malfoy looked at his son, this 12-year-old who speaks like a 40-year solicitor, who stands like someone who has never doubted the ground beneath his feet, who looks at his father with polite, complete, devastating disinterest, and made the only move that remained to him. He turned. He walked out. Harry watched him go. "He won't read it before the lawyers' meeting," he said. "No," Draco agreed. "But they will." Harry wakes at 3 a.m. to find himself having a conversation. What is unusual is that he is awake for this one, or becomes awake partway through it. Surfacing from sleep into the middle of a sentence he is already completing, and the sentence is not in English. He stops, lies still, listens. Draco's owl, a tawny named Meridian, selected for navigational reliability, is on her perch near the study door. She is awake. Her head is turned toward Harry's bed with the alert attention of a creature that has been engaged. Harry said, carefully, in the language he was apparently speaking, "Did I wake you?" Meridian said, "You asked me about the wind patterns over the Forbidden Forest. I told you they shift at dawn. You seemed satisfied." Harry sat up. "Draco," he said in English. From the other bedroom, without pause, as if he had been awake, I heard. That was Deep Tongue. "I know. Meridian's been talking to you for 20 minutes. I've been listening to your half." Harry looked at the owl. "You're a bird," he said in the language. "Obviously," Meridian said. Draco appeared in the doorway in his dressing gown, notebook already in hand. "It's not just serpents," he said. The Black Library's section on linguistic magic distinguishes between the narrow parcel tongue variant traditionally associated with Slytherin's line, which speaks only to serpents, and deep tongue, older, pre-Hogwarts, associated with death-adjacent magical experience. Harry survived something at 14 months that left a marker. A death echo. It creates a resonance with mortality that extends, in some practitioners, to communication with creatures whose nervous systems operate outside the warm-blooded register. He sat in the chair by Harry's desk, opened the notebook. "This also means the Chamber of Secrets problem becomes significantly more manageable," he said. "We haven't gone in yet," Harry said. "We found the access point in the first week," Draco said. "There's a section of wall in the Sovereign Quarter's lower storage room that responds to Deep Tongue rather than a key. We've been waiting for context. This is the context. The chamber itself is vast in the way of spaces designed by someone who wanted to communicate scale. Cathedral-like, serpent statues lining the walls, water on the floor reflecting green light from above. Hermione is already cataloging the runic inscriptions on the nearest columns. Draco is reading the magical density of the space with the attention of someone taking an ambient temperature. Harry walks to the center. He does not call out. He simply stands there and is still in the way that he is still when he is not performing anything, the specific quality of a person who has learned that stillness is itself a form of communication. The water at the far end shifts. The basilisk rises. It is enormous in the way of things older than any available frame of reference. 60 feet of ancient muscle and scale. Its eyes are closed. It has kept them closed since the moment it registered their entry, which is either instinct or intelligence, and is, either way, a form of courtesy. You closed your eyes, Harry said. You came without weapons drawn, the basilisk said. It seemed appropriate. We came without weapons at all. A long pause. You smell of death echo and starfire and old stone. You are not the heir. Not the heir you were placed here to wait for. No, that line ended. Someone is using your existence to frighten children in this school. We came to tell you this and to ask for your help stopping it. What does asking cost you? Nothing. That's why I'm doing it. What would you offer? Harry glanced at Draco. In their operational shorthand, a slight turn of the head meaning your component. He passed the question across. Draco stepped forward. There is an island, he said in English, which Harry translated as he spoke. Off the Scottish coast, part of the Black Estate. Uninhabited for 140 years, warded against casual approach. We have the resources to modify those wards to your specification, to create a sanctuary, a space that is genuinely yours. We have standing in the Wizengamot to petition for protected species status. Legal recognition that would make any future attempt to use you as a weapon or hunt you a criminal matter. Harry translated. The chamber was very quiet. The Pale One speaks of laws to a serpent, the basilisk said. The Pale One respects what power does when it is protected rather than enslaved, Harry said. A pause with a different quality from the ones before it. Not assessment. Something that has, in creatures with long memories, the specific weight of a thing that has not been offered before. There is a diary, the basilisk said finally. A dark object. A girl has been writing in it. It speaks back. This is the source of the false heir's voice. Not a person, but a piece of a person. Trapped in ink and leather, using the child to move through the school. Where is it now? The girl leaves it in her dormitory during the day. She is afraid of it and cannot stop returning to it. This is the nature of that kind of darkness. Harry relayed this to Hermione, who was already moving toward the chamber's exit with the expression of someone who has identified the precise location of a problem and intends to address it within the hour. We'll deal with the diary, Harry told the basilisk. And the offer stands. The island, the legal protection, the sanctuary. When this is resolved, you are very certain for a child, the basilisk said. I was raised by someone who is never uncertain, Harry said. It becomes a habit. The basilisk made a sound that Harry would later describe to Sirius as the closest thing to a laugh that something without conventional facial structure can produce, and lowered its head to the chamber floor with the ease of a creature that has made a decision and finds the decision adequate. Deal, it said. Hermione retrieves the diary with the precision of someone who has prepared for exactly this. She holds it at arm's length. Its magical signature is wrong in the way the Codex Adder describes soul vessel objects as wrong. Not dark in the manner of a dark spell, which has a direction and a purpose, but dark in the manner of a thing oriented inward, pulling rather than pushing. She carries it to the sovereign quarters, sets it on the workbench's stone surface, which they use for magical objects requiring containment before handling. Fiend fire, Harry said. Controlled, Draco said, already setting the containment parameters. We've been practicing the controlled application since we were 9. I know, Harry said. I'm not worried about the execution. I'm noting what it is. Someone put a piece of their soul in a book and gave it to a child. A pause. This was not the only one, Hermione said. She said it quietly, with the specific certainty of someone whose research has reached a conclusion she has been approaching for months. The Codex Adder describes the practice as typically repeated. A single vessel is considered insufficient for the purpose. There will be others. Harry looked at the diary. Then we find them, he said. He raised his wand. The fiendfire came precisely, contained, burned exactly as long as it needed to burn and not 1 second longer, and the diary was ash on the workbench stone before the clock in the study read midnight. In the morning, they wrote to Dumbledore. 2 pages. Factual, the diary described, the soul vessel theory cited, the destruction confirmed. The letter ended with 1 line. This was not the only one. We recommend a thorough investigation. Dumbledore read it in his office with Fawkes on his shoulder, and read it again, and then sat for a long time looking at nothing in particular, revising, for the second time since the previous September, every assumption he had brought to the question of Harry Potter. The Wizengamot chamber fills at 10 in the standard configuration, approximately 90 members, the tiered seating arranged in a horseshoe, the chief warlock's elevated position at the open end. The members who arrive early take their usual seats. The members who arrive at the standard time take their usual seats. By 10:05, the chamber has arranged itself into the pattern it has maintained for 4 centuries. Then, Harry and Draco walk in. They are 13. They are wearing formal robes. The rings are visible. Their solicitor, Rosamund Price, walks behind them with the expression of a woman having one of the more unusual mornings of her 30-year career. Harry takes the Potter seat. It has not been occupied since his parents' time. The chair's cushion compresses under the weight of a lord formally claiming a hereditary position, and the chamber's old magic registers this the way old institutional magic registers significant events, quietly, internally, a small adjustment in the room's foundational tone that most people feel without knowing they feel it. Draco takes the black seat. 2 seats, 2 13-year-olds, 3 ancient house designations between them. Dumbledore, as chief warlock, looks at them with the expression he has been refining since the sorting, the one that acknowledges the situation without performing the acknowledgement. He has had 2 years to develop it. It is very good. The first motion Harry brings is the wrongful conviction review, a formal requirement to review all convictions achieved since the war's end, without a trial meeting the Wizengamot's founding standards. Sworn testimony under veritaserum, presented before a quorum, with right of defense counsel. These standards were not met in approximately 43 cases. Every member received a documentation folder upon entering, 41 pages, distributed before the session opened, so there was no moment at which a member could claim not to have it. Cornelius Fudge, Minister for Magic, opened his copy to the first page, closed it, opened it again. The ministry takes the position that these convictions were conducted under emergency provisions applicable during the period of. The emergency provisions expired within months of the war's end, Draco said from his seat, without standing. The convictions in question span nearly a decade afterward. The emergency provisions defense applies to 11 of the 43 cases. The remaining 32 have no applicable defense. He looked at Fudge with the polite, complete disinterest he has been deploying since first year. Page 8. Cross-referenced with the relevant statutory timeline. A pause. Fudge turned to page 8. The motion passes 56-34. The margin is larger than Harry projected. 9 members he had categorized as opposition voted in favor. Either the documentation was more persuasive than anticipated, or there are 9 members of this chamber who have been waiting for someone to bring this motion and are relieved it has finally arrived. He files this. He will know which, in time. Narcissa is in the visitors' gallery. Sirius is beside her, wearing robes slightly too formal for his general aesthetic, which Narcissa selected and he accepted without argument. 56, Sirius said. I projected 47-52, Narcissa said. So you were wrong. I was conservative, she said. There is a distinction. The Triwizard Treaty arrives in Hermione's hands the following summer. Buried in the Black Library's historical archive under the classification Interinstitutional Agreements, pre-ministry. She reads it twice, makes 7 annotations, sends it to Harry and Draco with a covering note that says only, Article 9. Read carefully. Article 9 of the Triwizard Founding Treaty. In the case of a house independent of the 3 founding institutions claiming entry under ancient treaty right, such house being defined as any noble and most ancient house holding governance standing predating the establishment of Hogwarts, Beauxbatons, or Durmstrang, the tournament founders' governing rules shall apply in full, superseding any subsequent modifications to entry protocol. How old is the House of Black? Harry said. Hermione's response arrived 11 minutes later. 867 years. 133 years before Hogwarts. Harry found Draco in the study, already holding the treaty. We enter as one champion, Draco said. The goblet will receive 1 submission from the House of Black representing both of us. Dumbledore will object, Harry said. Dumbledore cannot object to a provision of the founding treaty. The treaty predates his position, predates the ministry's jurisdiction, predates everything except the houses themselves. Draco, set the document down. The goblet's decision is magically binding. If it selects us, we compete as a unit. Harry looked at him. You want to do this. I want to compete on terms we defined, Draco said. There's a distinction. The entry slip is cream-colored, the House of Black crest embossed in the upper left corner. Harry writes in his own hand. Harry James Potter Black and Draco Lucius Malfoy Black, champions of the noble and most ancient House of Black. Entered under Article 9 of the Triwizard Founding Treaty. He signs it. Draco countersigns. The Gringotts authentication seal is applied by Price's assistant, who has traveled from London for this specific purpose. They approach the goblet late at night, after the hall has emptied. The goblet burns blue-white in its chalice, indifferent to the hour, to the absence of audience. Harry drops the slip in. The flame turns, for approximately 3 seconds, a color with no standard name, not silver, not gold, something between them, with the quality of very old magic, registering the invocation of a provision it has not received in 700 years. Then it returns to blue-white. I told you it would acknowledge it, Draco said, walking back. You said it might acknowledge it, Harry said. I was being appropriately conservative, Draco said. There's a distinction. The champion selection fills the Great Hall with the atmosphere of a moment that has been building since September. The goblet selects Cedric Diggory for Hogwarts, Victor Crumb for Durmstrang, Fleur Delacour for Beauxbatons. 3 names. The flame dies down in the manner of a task completed. Then it surges. The flame shifts through the same nameless register from the night before, and a slip of cream paper emerges with the deliberateness of a goblet, doing something it was designed to do and has been waiting centuries to do correctly. Dumbledore catches the slip. Reads it. His expression does something very small, the complete stillness of a man absorbing unexpected information in front of 400 people. Harry Potter Black, he said, and Draco Malfoy Black. Champions of the House of Black, entered under Article 9 of the Triwizard Founding Treaty. The hall produces the noise of 400 people having 400 different reactions simultaneously. In the side chamber, Cedric Diggory assessed them with open, non-hostile curiosity. Victor Krum catalogued them as competition. Fleur Delacour looked at their rings. Article 9, she said. My headmistress said it had never been used. It hadn't, Draco said. Crouch spoke before anyone else could. The goblet's decision is binding under tournament law. The Article 9 provision is legitimate, authenticated by Gringotts' seal, and the House of Black's lineage predates all 3 schools. The entry is valid. So we have 4 champions, Bagman said. Rather, we have 3 champions and 1 House of Black entry, which is technically 1 entry, Harry said. The treaty language is specific. Article 9 entries are counted as a single champion regardless of the number of persons comprising the entry. We compete as one unit. One position in the final standings. Bagman looked at Crouch. Crouch looked at the treaty copy that Price, who had appeared in the doorway, having anticipated this conversation and positioned herself accordingly, held open at Article 9. The adults read it. The adults had nothing to say. The Hungarian horntail is the largest of the 4 dragons. It guards its nest of eggs at the far end of the arena, the golden egg sitting slightly apart from the others. Harry and Draco enter together. They stop at the arena's near edge and do not immediately advance. The horntail registers them. 2 figures, not running, not raising wands, not adopting any of the aggressive postures it has been responding to all day. It watches with the alert attention of a creature that is categorizing this as a 4th challenge until presented with evidence to the contrary. Harry speaks. Not in English. Not standard parcel tongue. The horntail is not cold-blooded in the strict sense, but it is ancient enough that the deep tongue register carries. We are not here for your eggs. We want only the one that is not yours. We will not approach the nest. The horntail is still. You speak the old tongue, it said. The voice arrives as meaning rather than sound, direct transmission of intent, without the intermediary of language. After a fashion, Harry said. The others came with fire and spells. They wanted to take what is mine. We want only what is not yours. The golden one, separate from the rest. You can see it is separate. A pause of 7 seconds. The crowd outside is producing the noise of a crowd that expected action and is receiving something it has no category for. The horntail looked at the golden egg. At Harry and Draco. At the nest. It made a sound, not a roar. Something more deliberate, and shifted its body, opening a clear line between the 2 figures and the egg. Draco extended his right hand. The wandless summoning charm they have been practicing since age 9 drew the egg across the arena floor to his hand. He caught it. The horntail did not move. It had made an assessment and acted on it, and considered the matter closed. Thank you, Harry said. You are the first to ask, the horntail said. They walked out. The crowd took several seconds to begin responding. When it did, it responded with the volume of something that has been genuinely surprised. The judges produced scorecards. 42 points out of a possible 40. The single deduction for insufficient individual combat technique against a dragon they didn't fight. We got the egg, Draco said at dinner, reading the deduction note with the flat delivery of someone who finds Voldemort reads the rings. He reads the braided shield, still active, silver-black in the graveyard dark. He reads the configuration, 2 figures, neither in the posture of someone who expects to lose. And the calculation behind his red eyes moves through several positions before arriving at one it cannot immediately leave. You know about the Horcruxes, he said. It is not a question. We know about 5 of them, Harry said. The diary, destroyed. 2nd year. Fiendfire. The ring. Dumbledore. The summer before this one, we gave him the location and the method. The locket, found at Grimmauld Place, Sirius, the summer before this one. The cup, Gringotts audit, 3rd year. Hermione, the diadem, room of requirement, 3 days before we left for the tournament. Voldemort went very still. That's 5 destroyed, Harry said. You'll have felt them go. You've been feeling it for 2 years. The red eyes moved between them with the calculation of a chess player who has just been shown that 4 of his pieces are already off the board, and a 5th is about to follow. The 7th, Voldemort said. I know about the 7th, Harry said, a pause that had its own specific weight. I've known since I was 12, Harry said. The scar, a fragment of your soul lodged in the only surviving host, when the killing curse failed on a love-anchored magical core and the rebounding energy had nowhere to go. An accidental vessel. Created by the collision of something that was designed to destroy, and something that was, fundamentally, incapable of being destroyed that way. He said this with the quality he would use to describe any piece of research, factual, organized, no emotional surcharge. I've had 3 years to think about what to do with that information. You cannot remove it without dying, Voldemort said. The Codex Adder disagrees, Draco said. The purging of a foreign soul. It requires 3 components. The willing consent of the host, a witness carrying the same blood bond as the host, and a counter soul, a fragment of death-survived magic, freely offered. He paused. Harry has all 3. He survived death. The death echo he carries is itself the counter soul. I am his witness under the Castor and Pollux bond. We've been practicing the ritual configuration for 18 months. Voldemort looked at them, these 14-year-olds who had spent 4 years systematically dismantling everything he had spent 50 years building, through letters and legal arguments and a private library in the south of France, and the calculation in his red eyes arrived, finally, at the position it could not leave. Now? Harry said. To Draco. Now, Draco said. Harry sat down on the graveyard grass. Not dramatically, practically, because the ritual requires the host to be grounded, and grass is ground. Draco knelt beside him. His left hand found Harry's right wrist, the bond that has existed since Halloween of their first year activated in the specific configuration the ritual requires. Harry closed his eyes. He found the fragment the way he has always been able to find it, a cold architectural presence in the upper register of his magical core, separate from his own magic the way a splinter is separate from the wood around it. He found the death echo beside it, the warmth of the thing that survived, the marker that has been with him since he was 14 months old, as much his as the scar itself. He offered the counter soul against the fragment, like curing like. The fragment recognized the death echo. They have shared the same space for 13 years, have always known each other the way 2 things know each other when they have no choice but proximity. What it had not experienced before was the death echo offered deliberately, moved against it with the full intent of a person who knows what he is doing and has chosen to do it, with a witness whose bond is old enough and deep enough to hold the configuration while the work completes. The fragment released. It did not go peacefully. Nothing embedded for 13 years goes peacefully, and Harry was aware of it as a tearing that was also a relief. The specific sensation of something that should not have been there, finally not being there. 41 seconds. He had timed the practice runs. When he opened his eyes, his scar was smooth. Not gone, the lightning bolt remained. Still his, still the first thing anyone sees. But the cold architectural presence was absent, and the absence felt like a room where someone had finally opened a window. Draco's hand left his wrist. He stood, offered Harry a hand. Harry took it. Stood, Voldemort had not moved. He was watching them with the expression of a man who has spent 50 years being the most dangerous thing in any room he entered and is processing, for the first time, the possibility that this room is different. 6 Horcruxes destroyed, Harry said. The 7th just removed. You're mortal. He looked at Voldemort with the specific absence of fear he has carried since childhood. Not performed fearlessness, not trained bravery, but the deep structural calm of someone who has never experienced the world as a place that will protect him and has therefore learned to stand in it without protection, without it meaning anything is wrong. You're mortal, and you're in a body that carries a death echo in every cell. That's going to become increasingly uncomfortable. Voldemort raised his wand. Eclipse, Harry said. The shield came up. The curse hit it and dispersed. They have run this configuration 2,000 times since they were 9 years old. They know every variable. What follows is not a duel. It is a sustained holding action, Voldemort's considerable power hitting the Gemini cast shield and producing nothing. Because the braided magic of 2 black bonded cores operating in full resonance produces an effect that Voldemort's experience does not contain a counter-frequency for. He is hitting a wall made of something he has never encountered, and therefore cannot access. Sirius arrives 11 minutes after the Portkey took them, having tracked the tournament Portkey's magical signature with the map modification they developed together for exactly this contingency. He transforms mid-leap above Nagini, who has been circling the graveyard's perimeter, unable to penetrate the shield, and casts fiend fire from above. Nagini does not survive. Voldemort feels it go. The last Horcrux. He is mortal, and in a body carrying a death echo, and his final anchor has just burned. And the full weight of what has happened arrives in his red eyes, in the specific form of a man realizing he has lost. Not immediately, not in one theatrical moment. The way true losses happen, incrementally, each second, slightly worse than the last. The calculations not resolving in any direction that contains an exit. He fell to his knees, not from a spell, from mortality, which has been waiting for him for 50 years and has the patience of everything that waits. Harry walked toward him. Voldemort looked up. His face had the expression of someone encountering the thing they spent their entire adult life avoiding and finding. At the moment of encounter, that the avoiding was the worst experience. "You planned all of it," Voldemort said. "From the beginning. From the night someone decided to build something worth inheriting," Harry said. He did not cast a spell. The killing curse requires intent to kill, and Harry has no such intent, and never has. What he did was stand close enough for Voldemort to read him clearly, and let what had already happened complete itself, because the completion was already in motion, and did not require Harry's participation except as witness. Tom Riddle, born 1926, died in a graveyard in Little Hangleton in a body carrying the resonance of his own failure worked into its cellular structure, like an answer to a question he should never have asked. He died without drama, without a final speech, without the theatrical ending that his entire life seemed designed to produce. He simply stopped. Sirius, from across the graveyard, said, "Everyone in one piece?" "Yes," Harry said. "Nagini is handled." "I know, I felt it go." He looked at Draco. "Did the echo work the way the Codex said?" "Yes," Draco said. He was brushing grass from his robes with the focused attention of someone using a small task to process a large event. The discomfort was already accelerating when he fell. The body was rejecting itself. Sirius reached them. He looked at Harry's forehead, the scar, still present, no longer cold. He pressed 2 fingers to it, checking the magical signature the way Narcissa taught him to check it 3 years ago when they first identified what it contained. Clean, he pulled both boys into an embrace that did not require elegance, arms around both of them simultaneously, the 3 of them standing in a graveyard with the specific warmth of people who are alive and have chosen each other and have just done something that has been years in preparation. "Right," Sirius said, into the top of Harry's head. "Let's go home." The Death Eater trials begin that summer and run through the autumn. The documentation packages, years of accumulated evidence, cross-referenced, authenticated, organized by Hermione with the thoroughness she applies to everything, and the specific additional thoroughness she applied to this, which is to say, complete, are delivered to the Wizengamot's clerk in 43 separate folders. 1 per case. Each folder, sworn testimony, memory evidence and sealed vials, financial records, ministry filings, the Malfoy archive correspondence where applicable, and a 2-page legal summary prepared by Price. Harry and Draco attend 11 of the 43 trials. The ones where their testimony is required, or where the evidence requires contextual explanation the documentation alone cannot carry. The remaining 32 proceed on the documentation alone. 32 of 32 convictions. Lucius Malfoy's trial is the 31st. Draco attends. He sits in the black family seat in the formal robes he wears to all Wizengamot proceedings. With the expression he has been developing since first year, the polite, complete disinterest of someone for whom the emotional stakes of this proceeding were resolved some time ago. The evidence is presented. Lucius's counsel offers the imperious defense, which the evidence contradicts on 14 specific points. The prosecution's rebuttal takes 9 minutes. The vote: guilty. Draco submits a formal statement on sentencing, read by Price because Wizengamot protocol does not permit direct advocacy from a member with familial connection to the accused. 3 sentences. The House of Malfoy notes that the sentencing reflects the evidence accurately. The House of Malfoy takes no position on reduction or extension. The House of Malfoy is satisfied that the process has been correct. Price reads them in 20 seconds. Lucius, from the chair at the chamber's center, looked at his son for the first and only time during the trial. Draco met his eyes with the expression that is not cruelty, and is not warmth, and is not performed for anyone's benefit, including Lucius's. It is simply the face of a person who has made his choices and is at peace with them, looking at a person who made different choices and must now live in the consequences. The gavel came down. The Umbridge motion, tabled 2 years prior, entered in the Wizengamot record, the intervening period used by Hermione to build the complete documentation package the first version lacked, comes back to the floor on a Tuesday in autumn. The documentation package is 97 pages. It covers every ministry decree Dolores Umbridge has produced across her career, with impact assessments for each, cross-referenced against the discriminatory practical effects on Muggle-born access to magical education and ministry employment. The cross-referencing took Hermione 6 weeks across 2 summers. The impact assessments are accurate to the level of individual cases. Umbridge is present as an observer. She is wearing pink. Harry presents the motion without notes. The motion is not about Umbridge personally. It is about a pattern of institutional behavior of which Umbridge is the most documented practitioner, and addressing it as personal would make it easier to dismiss as personal and harder to address as structural. The vote: 61 to 29. The motion passes with 17 votes above the first attempt, which means the 2-year record building has moved 17 members from opposition to support. Hermione, in the visitors' gallery, wrote the number down. Her projected range was 14 to 19. 17 sits within it. The model held. Dolores Umbridge's position as senior undersecretary is reviewed under Clause 7 of the motion. The review takes 4 weeks. The finding, documented ministerial overreach, 43 specific instances, results in her formal removal. She was in the ministry corridor when the removal notice reached her, walking toward her office. And she read it in the corridor and stood very still for a moment, in the way of someone for whom the floor has just relocated without warning. Harry and Draco were not in the corridor. They submitted their evidence 6 weeks ago and were currently in the sovereign quarters at Hogwarts, where it was a Tuesday afternoon and there was transfiguration homework technically due tomorrow. The ministry's administrative processing of the motion's consequences was a consequence rather than an event requiring their attendance. The work was already done. The execution was simply the execution. The kitchen at Grimmauld Place smells of toast and coffee and the specific warmth of a room that has been inhabited long enough to have developed opinions about who belongs in it. The Sunday dinners began as an informal arrangement, whoever was in London, whoever wanted to come, and became, over time, the kind of institution that develops when the same people make the same choice repeatedly until the choice becomes a fact of their lives. The table is too small. It has been too small since the second Sunday, when 6 people arrived expecting a table for 4, and Sirius extended it with a casual charm that has been permanent since. It seats 11 tonight, which is comfortable. Ron is at Harry's left, 20 years old and an Auror, which suits him in the specific way that suits work when they are accurate rather than selected. He is arguing with Hermione about the sequencing of a Wizengamot motion she made last week, not the conclusion, which he agrees with, but the order of operations, which he thinks could have been faster. This argument has been running, in various forms, for years, and everyone at the table finds it endearing, including Harry and Draco, who are its most regular audience. Neville is at the table's far end, talking to Hannah about something that requires his hands to describe it, which means it is about plants. He has grown into the specific form of quiet confidence that develops in people who spent their early years underestimated and have stopped being available for that. Luna is here in the way that Luna is always here, physically present, mentally navigating a parallel version of the conversation, occasionally producing observations that are simultaneously adjacent to and more accurate than the ostensible subject. She brought the dessert. No one asked her to. It is extraordinary. Narcissa is at the head of the table. She has been at the head of every Sunday dinner since the arrangement began, not because anyone designated this, but because rooms arrange themselves around Narcissa and she has stopped pretending otherwise. Sirius is at the other end. He is laughing at something Ron has just said, the laugh that reaches his eyes completely, that Azkaban tried to remove and failed. The evidence of that failure being the most satisfying ongoing outcome of the last 2 decades. His left knee is wrapped, the old injury asserting itself in cold weather as it has done since his animagus landing in the graveyard. He moves around it with the practiced accommodation of someone who has made peace with a limitation without making peace with complaining about it. After dinner, the table narrowing down as people drift toward other rooms, toward the sitting room where Sirius's record collection exerts its gravitational pull. Harry and Draco remain at the table with their coffee. This is also a habit. The last 2 at the table after everyone else has moved. The specific quiet that follows a full house. The Basilisk Sanctuary sent its seasonal report, Draco said. The wards are holding. There are apparently signs of territory establishment, which the warden considers promising. She's settling in, Harry said. The warden's notes indicate she has rearranged the island's geological features to her preference, Draco said. 3 of the standing stones are in new positions. The warden found this alarming. I found it encouraging. She's making it hers, Harry said. Yes, Draco said. As she should. Harry looked at the window at the end of the kitchen, the one that faces the small Grimmauld Place garden, and through the garden wall the London sky. In London at night, the stars are theoretical rather than visible, the city's light arguing with the dark. But the theoretical stars are where they always are. He knows where to look. Narcissa planned the Sunday dinners, Harry said. I know, Draco said. She mentioned them to you before Hogwarts. 3rd year, just in passing. Specific enough that she'd already pictured exactly this. Draco looked at the table, the coffee rings, the crumbs of Luna's extraordinary dessert, the small accumulated evidence of a room that has been used well. She built the ending before she built the beginning. She just didn't mention it. Harry thought about this. About a 30-year-old woman kneeling on a stone chapel floor with 2 infants and a decision she had already made, and a world she had already decided to build. About everything that followed that decision. The years and the work and the cost and the outcome, being, from Narcissa's perspective, simply the execution of something she had already completed in her mind before she stood up. We should tell her we know, Harry said. She knows we know, Draco said. Should we tell her we're grateful? Draco set down his coffee. Every Sunday dinner is us telling her we're grateful, he said. She designed it that way. From the sitting room, Sirius's record collection began. Something old, something with horns in it, the kind of music that requires a certain amount of floor space to appreciate correctly. And Ron's voice made an observation about this that produced Hermione's response, and then a burst of laughter that reached the kitchen clearly. Harry and Draco sat at the end of the table and did not move toward the sitting room immediately, because there is something in this specific moment. The warmth coming through from the next room, the dark outside the window, the twin rings on their right hands catching the kitchen light, the knowledge of what has been built and what is still building, that is worth inhabiting fully before it becomes the next moment. The work would continue tomorrow. There were Wizengamot sessions and sanctuary reports and Azkaban reform documentation and a dozen other ongoing things that would still be ongoing in the morning and would require the same attention and care that everything has always required. But this was tonight. And tonight, the kitchen smelled of coffee and good company and the accumulated warmth of a space where the right people had chosen to be, repeatedly, until the choice became a fact of their lives. She said something to us, the morning we left for Hogwarts, Harry said. She said a lot of things, Draco said. The last thing, before we went through the barrier. Harry looked at the table. She said, "Go remind them who you are." Draco was quiet for a moment. "And we did," he said. "We did," Harry said. Outside, above the city's argument of light, the stars were where they have always been. Castor and Pollux, twin stars, steady, permanent, visible to anyone who knows where to look and bothers to look. They have been there since before the chapel. They will be there after everything else. In the sitting room, the record played on, and the room was full, and it had been built, every chair and every face and every Sunday, by someone who had once stood up off a cold stone floor and decided that the world she was leaving behind was less interesting than the one she intended to make. Harry picked up his coffee. "More shelves in the study," he said. "The east wall," Draco said immediately. "I've been measuring. There's room for another 3 sections if we adjust the window seating." "You've been measuring. For 6 months." "Narcissa knows," Harry said. "She's already commissioned them," Draco said. "She'll present them as a practical necessity and expect us to act surprised." "We'll act surprised. Obviously," Draco said. From the sitting room, someone turned the record over, and the music changed, and the laughter continued, and the kitchen held its warmth against the London dark with the uncomplicated permanence of a room that has been made into something worth coming back to, again and again, which is the only way any room worth anything has ever been made. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.